Welcome to Walkabout the Galaxy, the four-quark astronomy podcast, where the science is universal, the opinions are personal, and nothing is off limits.
Nothing?
Nothing is off limits, Jim.
All right, good times.
Even rainbows.
We are Strange, Charm, Up and Top the Astroquarks, also known as Josh Caldwell,
Addie Dove,
Hannah Sargent,
and Jim Cooney.
Coming to you from the Walkabout studio at the University of Central Florida. Remember to subscribe to us on all platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us on YouTube, where we're now publishing hashtag shorts. We are also at www.walkaboutthegalaxy.com, where you can see how to order a Walkabout shirt and support STEM education at the same time. You can contact us anytime at wtg@ucf.edu, and definitely do contact us that way if you order a shirt so we can get it to you as soon as possible. Shout out also as we're starting off the show. Where do you point? Oh,
the shirts. Holy crap, I thought just she had the shirt, but then I realized you both have shirts, and I'm the only jerk without a shirt.
Turns out everyone's wearing a shirt.
Oops.
There is a new
I got a shirt. I'll show you.
digital album called Stories from Our Soul, S-O-L. Soul.
Oh. By Alan Stern?
No.
Okay.
By Jesse James Allen, who is a friend of the show and who recruited none other than Strange Quark to do some voiceover work for that album, which is available now on streaming platforms. Very cool, spacey music, and this one is a sort of ode or tribute to human space exploration ventures. Also did a Cassini-themed work. We'll post information on our social media about that work.
You and Bill Shatner doing spoken word albums.
Well, I worked at the spoken word artistry of Josh Caldwell and William Shatner. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Coming to TikTok soon.
Have you listened to some of the I had way back 33 1/3 LP.
I don't understand
Actually,
what
it's a friend of mine who had a vinyl. We took it to a convention. He sold it for $50, which is a lot of money back then. Of
probably worth that much now.
William Shatner speaking songs.
Nice.
Like Rocket Man.
Yeah.
Our stumper today is astrobiological, and just interested in your opinion. We've talked off and on over the episodes, the years, about the Fermi paradox and the Great Filter and life out there and all this stuff. I'm getting kind of impatient with our lack of discovery of extraterrestrial life.
Sure.
It's been your whole lifetime and we haven't done it.
That's right. What the hell?
Unacceptable.
Folks, let's get on this. And we've also talked about how there's different ways of looking for it, exoplanet atmospheric signatures, search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So what do you think? Are we
intelligent
the
life?
smartest things in the galaxy?
Oh,
surely not.
I really hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too.
So what's up? How come we haven't heard from the others then?
Because have you looked at us?
It's so far.
It's not that far. That's the thing. That's the Fermi paradox, is that time is bigger than space on a galactic scale.
I don't know. I feel like they're out
depressed
there.
thinking
I don't think people, maybe they're just avoiding us because they've seen, if you walk into a bar, you see your blind date.
Moonfall, and so that's why they're like, no.
No, but if you go into a bar, you see your blind date and you change your mind and you walk away.
Oh.
Ouch! You do that?
No.
That's happened to me.
Hypothetical.
It's a hypothetical,
Okay.
but yeah.
I think that this is the blind date theory for the Fermi paradox.
Yeah.
And I think this is there are several possible explanations for the Fermi paradox, and the Hannah Sargent's blind date theorem.
You heard it here
my
first.
favorite
Yeah.
one.
They just looked at us and turned around.
They were like, nope. They noped right out
I'm
of there.
out.
Came over. Are we in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way, Jim? Is that where we are?
No, we're in the Orion arm.
Orion.
Orion arm.
Yeah.
They came over to the Orion arm. They walked in, took a look around, and said, "Oh no,
Yeah.
Nope. Let's top
This
over
is
to
a
Sagittarius.
disaster waiting to happen.
Jim, what do you think?"
No, hot take. We're it.
You are the smartest. Yeah.
I think here
smartest, or we're
I've
the
decided
only?
this is my this week's decision on the Fermi paradox is that the transition from prokaryote to eukaryote was an extremely unlikely event and is a great filter, and thus there's life teeming out there in the galaxy, but it's all simple.
So you're prokaryote.
Wait a minute. Are you prokaryote or anti-karyote?
I don't take political views here. We're neutral.
Addie, you're in Hannah's camp,
Yeah.
and also you like the blind date in a bar theorem.
Sure.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
It's based in great science.
Yeah, I think they.
It's totally.
I mean, it could be that they're
totally plausible.
I mean, there's all these UFO sightings, right? Like maybe
No.
some of the. I'm just kidding.
I think we really need to emphasize you're just kidding.
I'm so just kidding.
Yeah. I'm in Jim's camp on this one, I have to say.
What if
Really?
you looked up on a rock one time and it seemed to be like up on a rock face on a cliff, and it was like, it seems like there's something up there, but then it fades out and fades back in, and you're like, oh no, it's just a rock face.
You are talking about the Next Gen episode Duck Blind. And
I am.
Did you know that I was on the set for the filming of that episode?
I didn't.
What?
Oh
Yes.
wow.
I got to tour the set of Star Trek The Next Generation exactly once.
Nice.
And it was during the filming of that episode,
Oh.
thanks to my awesome family connection, my brother
Excellent.
Casey Caldwell, who had worked with somebody who then went on to work on Next Gen and actually worked on a bunch of those
Nice.
shows.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And then I had lunch at the Paramount commissary, and Jonathan Frakes was having lunch by himself, looking sort of sad and lonely.
How was he sitting in his chair?
He looked sort of sad and lonely, but he was in this alien makeup.
Oh,
because
yeah,
he was
right,
pretending
for
to
that
be
episode,
an
yep.
alien.
No wonder he was probably up at like 3 a.m. to have hair and makeup done. So I'd be sad and
Yeah.
lonely at lunch.
Yeah, but it was just
He was an alien, that's
it was
why he was
just
sad
kind
and
of an
lonely.
awesome,
That's pretty cool.
strange moment. And anyway,
Yay.
well, today we'll talk about orcs, not a Star Trek phenomenon,
No.
oxygen at Europa, and other oddities. But first, this episode of Walkabout the Galaxy is brought to you by the many body problem. They say two's a company and three's a crowd, but if you really want to get your freak on, try the many body problem.
Oh my.
With no restricted versions like the three-body problem, the many-body problem is ready to help you with everything from planetary rings to asteroid belts, globular clusters, and galaxies. When you're ready to move on from three bodies, get the many-body problem and explore all the universe has to offer. The many-body problem. Do something wonderful.
I feel like it should be called the polybody problem.
The polybody.
Do something wonderful.
That is so broad. It could be any product in the universe.
Well, yes.
Can you give us a hint?
No,
IBM.
you can't.
What did you say?
IBM.
That is remarkably close, is my hint.
Oh. What is it? Say it again.
Do something wonderful.
Do something wonderful.
Microsoft?
Less close than IBM.
HP?
Intel.
Oh, okay.
Kudos to Jim.
Yeah.
Where he pulled that one out of. That's pretty
IBM's
good.
is like think differently or something like that.
Well, this one was one of Intel's many
Yeah.
slogans over the years, and this one was relatively short-lived. But many body problem, I'm like, what am I going to look for here? The tagline for like some kind of sex club or something? I don't know. But the many body problem for
Intel is
listeners who may be slightly troubled or confused at the moment
Yeah.
refers to, Jim.
Well, it refers to trying to solve what happens when you have many. I mean, the two-body problem is how do two bodies interact? They pull on each other.
Gravitationally. It's almost always speaking about
Right.
purely gravitational.
Three and two-body problem you can solve analytically. You can write down equations which describe how the two things will move.
You can.
So can you.
That's true.
So
I can't.
I did once
Once
upon
in
a
life at
time.
least, and so can Josh. But three-body problem, also three bodies. There's only three things.
It just gets so hard.
It cannot be solved analytically. And n bodies, many bodies, not at all.
Polybodies.
Forget about it. It's
You know what
crazy.
you know what you need to solve the many body problem. This would have been a good hint, but this is maybe what
A
you
good
were thinking.
processor.
You need a
You
good.
need a lot of
Supercomputer.
computing power, right? So you can approximately solve for what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, it is remarkable that you can have such beautiful closed form equations for, say, the moon orbiting the Earth, if that's the only two things in the universe.
Right.
But then as soon as you throw some other object
Add
in
one
there,
other thing in there, and it cannot be done.
Goes to
forget
heck.
about it.
Yeah, it is. I always thought that was really interesting that it's that just three bodies acting, and the force of gravity is a simple looking thing.
It is a simple
is.
looking
Like
thing.
you'd think with three.
We're not talking general
anyway.
relativity force.
No,
We're
just
talking-
straight up Newtonian. Just this pulls on this with a strength proportional
OG
to the
gravity.
inverse square of their
Yeah.
distance. I mean, it's simple, but man, do complicated things come out of such? That's really, to me, I'm going tangent here, but that's one of the really beautiful things about physics. Like the fundamental laws of physics aren't that complicated. There aren't that many of them, but They lead to this
Implementation of them, right.
ridiculously beautiful menagerie of different things that can happen because
Good use
of
the word menagerie.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. So this like properties come out of systems that you would never have guessed based on the simplicity of the fundamental rules that are happening. But anyway.
I mean, in some sense, why the universe is an interesting place instead of a boring place.
That's right.
In every way you can think about it is because those simple laws have so many possible solutions.
Yep.
We have some space news.
Yeah, we have nerd news, we have space news. The space news, they started putting some hydrazine in the SLS rocket today.
They're wet testing it.
They're going to do, it's probably next
just
weekend.
rocket, just normal rocket. I thought.
Yes. Like SpaceX uses hydrazine too.
Hydrazine.
Yeah, but that's what goes in
The SLS you're talking about.
Yes.
So the SLS has got two big solid rocket motors on the side, one segment taller than the shuttle solid rocket motors, if I recall
I think that's true.
correctly.
It's like 5 instead of 4 or something.
And then that big giant central orange tank is filled with liquid oxygen and hydrazine to
maybe.
Power, I believe, 4 or 5. How many motors does it have at the bottom?
Oh gosh, I haven't looked at this in a while.
You guys should know this.
No, I haven't looked. It's been so long that I just haven't looked at it in a while. I
It
don't
has
remember.
4 or 5, basically.
I think
of
it's got the
engines.
2 SRBs and then 4 engines.
4 engines on the bottom of that central stack, and those are basically the same engines that were on the shuttle orbiter when it was
And
flying.
did you say they're doing the wet test?
Wet dress rehearsal.
Dress rehearsal this weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Because I want to head over and go take
Check
a look.
that out. You want to see that wet dress rehearsal?
Yeah.
Or just look at the rocket before it.
even just I might
Take it
head to the
out.
beach.
Yeah. Because I mean, it's not gonna. You're not gonna be able to see anything really when they're doing the dress rehearsal.
Right.
But it's gonna be on the pad until then, and then
Right.
they'll empty it out and take it back in.
Right. And
For a little bit.
for our Central Florida listeners, the Canaveral National Seashore
That's the one.
has very close access to those launch pads.
And then
The solar cycle is
the
heating
solar
up,
cycle is heating up, and that means
metaphorically and literally.
and literally. So there's been more sort of sunspot activity. There's some fun movies you can see of like sunspot groups. I think we talked about a couple solar flares that happened a little bit ago,
Right.
but those are happening more often. And as all this is happening, there's more energy that's input into the upper atmosphere of the Earth, and so it's like puffing up too. So it's called the thermosphere, because it gets
The
hotter
hotosphere.
again in a part of the atmosphere. It's heating up and sort of expanding. It's like when
which is a drag, literally and metaphorically, for satellites.
it is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Poor old Starlink.
Yeah.
Couldn't handle it.
The Starlink satellites, there are over 2,000 of them, and at some point they're going to be, like now I've been going off about how they're launch another 50, launch another 50, launch another 50, and their numbers are growing. At some point, their numbers are going to be so large that they're going to still be launching 50, but that's just to replace the other 50 that have met their end of lifetime. If they're really going to get to these sort of tens of thousands numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's heating up. There's some fun plots of like the power or temperature up in the atmosphere, and it could be a pretty strong solar cycle activity if it follows some
When's the
trends.
solar max coming?
So we're only like a year and a half into the solar cycle.
Well, when was the last solar max? I had 11 years, Jim.
Yeah, I don't know when the last one was.
I think we have like
It's 11 years after
four-ish
the
more
previous
years.
one.
Thanks,
I
Josh.
think yeah,
You can
don't
Google it
remember.
while Hannah's telling us about the stowaway.
I could.
Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to
We're
look
trying
at...
to nerdify you a little bit
yeah.
because you're a disappointingly unnerdy actor.
yeah.
I just have... yeah,
You're all
okay.
into like curling and track and field.
I like to watch a lot more sport than I do sci-fi as a general rule.
Well, not. I like both.
But I'm now kind of looking into more like average-ish sci-fi that's out there because there's a lot out there.
Okay.
And I found The Stowaway with Anna Kendrick. Basically, I love Anna Kendrick, so that was what drew me in.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Cute as a button.
What's the basic
And
premise?
the premise,
It's weird.
it is weird.
The basic premise actually drove me away from this movie.
Yeah, so there's a mission to Mars, 3 crew. and there is someone who works at the launch facility or whatever, and they accidentally get locked into a cupboard, and basically they get discovered on the way to Mars. But because they're going so fast, you can't turn around. They have to they have to rendezvous at Mars first. So he's now on this 2-year mission without even meaning to be.
That's very.
But of course, also things are going awry.
Like,
And
well, they don't have enough
life support for 2 people, but now there's 4 people, and blah blah blah.
That's very Lost in Space to throw another classic sci-fi.
Not seen it.
You have?
No.
So the original Lost in Space from the 60s TV show, American TV show.
Yeah.
And it's a family.
There's a new version, a reboot.
And there's a reboot on Netflix, and there was a movie. Anyway, there's a few versions floating around out there, and they all feature basically a stowaway, an accidental stowaway.
I mean, I actually kind of liked it. I was in the mood for just something chill and nothing, because often sci-fi can be quite like, it's a lot and
I thought it was...
and actiony, and it's actually pretty chilled as a general thing.
But it's like emotional.
It's fun. Well, not when I nap in the middle.
Oh, okay, sure.
So
sure, okay.
I now have to reevaluate everything you said about this movie.
I liked it. Apart from
the part when you were awake.
I went and I did watch everything.
There's a lot of there's a lot of like moral quandary type things in it.
Okay.
And I kind of got into it. Then there was the only thing that I didn't like is there is a part where there's solar wind.
Yeah.
And it's as if, and they're bearing in mind they're in transit between Earth and Mars, and they're just they represent solar wind as if it's like these green particles that are just flowing through the fingers on the.
That's weird.
And
their fingers.
as if
like
when
it's
they're outside,
the material away or something.
Yeah,
it's very strange.
Whereas these glowing particles occur when the solar wind interacts with an atmosphere, not just in space.
There's this interesting issue for folks like us when we watch science fiction movies, because liberties are always taken, essentially. And it's curious how sometimes we just give it a pass, right? Like, I don't care about there's no sound in space. I don't care that in Star Wars and Star Trek they're sitting down in their spacecraft and they don't really talk about how that's happening or Newton's laws or any of that stuff. And then there are other things like this that just sort of bug the crap out of me.
I think it's because it's when films they will to some extent,
if they're trying to be
realistic, and then something just goes a bit rogue.
Yeah.
Whereas if everything is completely rogue, it's like, well, fine, that's the expectation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That part bothered me.
Okay.
We did start watching. There's a new streaming version of War of the Worlds, or on some channel. I don't know. We found it, and it's I think it's like a French and something else production, but it's like partly in English, mostly in English. But it's a series.
Okay.
Of War of the Worlds,
so,
which is kind of interesting. I thought of that earlier.
Classic sci-fi novels. Foundation's been adapted, and readapted. Now War of the Worlds.
I saw June. Sorry.
Let's talk about.
I saw Spider-Man.
Some of our topics.
Oh yeah, the thing we're here to do.
Orcs. Now you don't really get into sci-fi, Hannah. But what about fantasy? That's probably even less.
Have you seen Lord of the Rings?
I have seen Lord of the Rings, but I really dislike the Smeagle Gollum character, so I can only really manage the first film.
What?
That's fair.
No, it's not.
Most entertaining.
I find it quite painful to watch any scene that he's in.
Well, anyway, that's not the kind of orc you're talking about. He's not an orc anyway.
No, it's not.
I was looking up orcs, and I found out that there's also a Yu-Gi-Oh card that's a giant orc.
Oh yeah. There's orcs have been, Well, anyway, we'll talk about the fantasy version of orcs in the trivia. But for now, we'll talk about the astronomical version of orcs, which are
odd radio circles.
Yeah, I find that hilarious. that the kind of semi-official name of this phenomenon is odd radio circle.
Yes.
I'm with it up until circle. I'm okay with odd.
Really odd? It's just like odd.
What if it was an odd radio sphere?
Odd radio source is what I want it to be.
Oh, but it's a circle. I think the whole point is that it's a circle.
Well, it's a circle just in our view.
Yeah.
Anyway, the idea is there's this phenomenon that we've seen. There's only 4 or 5 of these things that we know about. 5? Yep. These are, as the name suggests, circles that we see in the sky in radio light. But radio light only.
Are they normal looking?
No. They are actually normal looking, but it's odd that they're there at all because we can't explain.
What sort of dimension are these galactic?
So it's first of all, it's a little hard to say, right? Because if you don't know anything about a thing, it's hard to tell the distance to a thing. What's interesting about them at first is that they're all kind of roughly the same size on the sky. Like
how big is that?
I don't know.
They're a million light years across, though.
Well, no, that's a guess. That's assuming a distance. So at first, it was challenging to figure out what they were because you don't know how far away they are. The best guess, because at first we saw, you don't see this in any other wavelength of light for one, and at first we didn't see them in association with any other thing. Now that we've looked at them a little more carefully, I think we're seeing in almost all of them a faint visible galaxy that seems to be aligned with the center. And so we're guessing that it has to do with that galaxy. And if that's the case, with the galaxy, we can roughly tell the distance to. And so...
You said a million light years across.
I did.
Right. So that's 10 times bigger than the Milky Way.
Right. So these things are huge. And we see them as circles, of course, but they're not actually circles. They are, in fact, probably spherical.
But you resolve you resolve that circle.
Yeah.
And probably spheres, which I'm sorry that we're having it's a tangential episode, which is one of the things that does bug me in Star Wars.
You have to go back and
blow
fix the
something
intro.
up. It's going to blow up. It's going to produce a spherical thing.
Oh, and they go circular.
And then they show you the circle, but not face on from some oblique thing, like it was some sort of strange ring explosion.
Yeah, they love ring explosions. Star Trek and Star Wars.
It look like a ring, and that's to say, if you take a sphere and look at it. The limb, what we call the limb of that sphere, is the brightest or most opaque part. So that's a circle. But then if you can't then tilt that. That's not a thing.
Sure you can.
You tilt the whole sphere. It's not a thing. Anyway, these are probably spheres. Of something that is emitting radio light.
There are lots of non-spherical explosions in space things.
Yeah,
Jets.
I mean, if something is spinning fast enough, then you'll get non-spherical stuff. It will come off. Yeah. Then you have an axis of rotation, and things will get weird. But these are spheres. These are almost certainly spheres. I say that, although one of the proposed explanations was it was like they're like hourglassy looking things that you're looking down the shaft of.
Yeah,
because that also looks like kind of a ring. Kind of a thing. We see that sometimes with planetary nebula. Planetary nebula sometimes look like hourglassy things, and if they're arranged correctly, then they look like a circle right in your face. I'm putting circles in people's faces now. But I think that's probably an unlikely thing because if that were the case, you would see them. Axis. Yeah, and we don't see any that are off axis. So it's probably
only seen 5 though.
The hourglass,
right. We only see 5, so small number statistics. But
for the hourglass to look like a circle, you have to be looking
right at the top of it.
Of the hourglass, exactly.
That's right.
And what are the chances you look at 5 hourglasses that way?
Right. So the question is, what the hell are these?
Astronomical.
Things? I mean, these things are huge, right? Like you said, a million light years across.
And they're only seen in radio. Now that's consistent with,
electrons being accelerated
electrons
with synchrotron radiation.
Ooh.
And so there are ways to do that.
Synchrotron?
So it's not crazy, but it's also like a lot of possible explanations have all wavelengths of light. You'd see it in visible, you'd see it in X-ray, you'd see it in some other wavelengths. We only see these in radio. So what is going on?
What is going on? Do you have an answer?
So to accelerate electrons, our favorite thing to accelerate electrons besides alien synchrotrons, is that what you were suggesting, Anna?
I mean, I think someone else suggested it. I was just saying it.
I love that Hannah desperately wants aliens out there badly. Everything is aliens.
Everything is aliens today. Just this week. Just this week.
But our favorite way to accelerate electrons is a magnetic field.
It is.
Right.
So, and we talked about intergalactic cluster shocks recently.
Right.
These gigantic shock waves due to interactions of galactic magnetic fields. So in some sense, I would say, okay, maybe you would expect to see these everywhere, and the odd thing is we only see 5.
Yeah, we only see 5. So it could be, and they all seem to, since they're all about the same size in the sky, they're all roughly the same distance away. So this could be,
and not image artifacts. If they're all the same size, all the same distance.
No, and that was one thing that they did think about, but they've analyzed, and this was what this most recent paper is. a telescope called Meerkat, which is freaking awesome. Very cute.
There we go.
We love meerkats.
Use ASCAP and Meerkat.
Right, these were originally ASCAP was
Nothing is off limits, and we have
nothing is off limits. Asses are all
Wow.
ass caps. That's an Australian telescope, right? What does it stand for? It stands for like the
Australian
square
Square Kilometer Array something.
Yep.
Which is a big radio, array of radio telescopes, and it was these things were originally found in there just a couple years ago. By the way, these are brand new.
Square Kilometer Array Pathfinder, because it's a Pathfinder. It's the smaller one. They're going to build a bigger one eventually.
Square Kilometer Array,
yeah.
Right? But then they recently used Meerkat, which is a different thing. I don't think I think the cat stands for again Kilometer Array Telescope, but Meer is just like because it's in South Africa, in an area where meerkats live. But in any event, they took more careful image of one of these things with a much better resolution than earlier, and are certain now that it's not an artifact, which was absolutely was a thing that you'd worry about.
Definitely want to roll that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not. It's something. It's a thing.
There's still a mystery.
So it's a big mystery. I think one of the leading things is just like a starburst kind of pressure front. So you get a big burst of star formation in a galaxy, and that
relatively
short period of time. And so you throw off a lot of stellar wind, which becomes a galactic wind, which pushes out, and then that pushes into the surrounding charged particles in intergalactic space, accelerates the electrons in those things, which then produces the synchrotron radiation. So that's a possibility. But anyway, it's awesome. Yeah, why we see so few of them, why they're...
And this is sort of gets back to the Stumper, and I like to... sometimes I like to think of these things in terms of which is bigger, space or time. Mm-hmm. Like, so for the Fermi paradox, it's because the age of the galaxy is much bigger than the light travel time across the galaxy. So the time is bigger than the space for the galaxy. And starbursts, like, how can you have a whole galaxy do that? Well, the lifetime of big stars that blow up quickly and energetically, the very massive stars live a very short period of time, million-year sort of time scales. And so they are blasting, if you have a lot of them going off, they don't have to be simultaneous. It doesn't have to be some coordinated thing. It can be a normal thing within the sort of ecosystem of the galaxy, to have a lot of those things happen and then push a lot of material out simultaneously on the scale of 1 million light years of material going out from the galaxy. Right. Tell us about Orcs. The other Orcs.
We just did? Oh.
All right.
Okay.
Trivia time.
Go.
There is, of course, a number of questions, but here's the main first one. The main first one. So the modern version of the orc is largely due to Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Right? There are, of course, orcs in that thing, and they're like evil, bad,
scary.
The question is a very simple one. Okay. Where did Tolkien get his inspiration / the word orc? Where did that first appear?
Is this a multiple choice, or do you just have to brain it?
It's not a multiple choice.
To brain it.
I should have made it multiple choice, but this was a short lead time.
All right.
Okay.
Do we have the follow-up yet, or we do that later?
Yeah, you'll wait for the follow-up.
Okay.
That's it. You mull that over. Where does...
Okay. Do we have to wait until solar maximum, which is in 2025?
2025! She'll look it up. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, that's coming up. That's not too far away.
Yeah, not too far away.
I'm excited.
Away from solar max.
It'll be interesting. We start doing all these Artemis missions right during solar max.
Ooh.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Uh-oh.
They can have those green particles running through their fingers again.
and from all moonkind, whatever that one was, for all mankind, that show with the dust and the solar event, the dust particles moving on the surface.
Jumping around.
We talked about that pre-Hannah.
Yeah. So,
anyway.
Well, speaking of moons.
Oh, sure.
Oh, yeah. Love a good moon. We're on to Jupiter's moon.
Okay.
Which one?
Europa.
Okay.
That's my favorite one.
So, and
of all moons, or just Jupiter's moons?
All moons.
I will fight
all moons?
We will fight you.
Yeah.
Well, Europa's pretty cool because aliens, maybe.
No.
Yeah.
Brackets, maybe.
Yeah.
So there's a recent paper coming out talking about how the possible ways that oxygen could be transported below the icy crust of Europa into its subsurface ocean. So oxygen and ocean makes you think
aliens.
Fish.
equals life, for sure. So
Okay, and so how
So this is like could be microbial aliens, not necessarily
Fish.
brain aliens.
Yeah, I don't really think much that there's brain aliens beyond us in our solar system, but microbes, very
Sure.
feasible.
Okay, how thick is Europa's
Brain
crust again?
aliens?
We're
That's a new
talking.
term. We have
Brain aliens?
we have the blind
My brain is not a thing today,
we have the
so
blind date bar theory for the Fermi paradox. Now we have brain aliens.
Brain aliens.
Brain
I like
aliens or lack thereof. So we're talking. Is it like tens of kilometers? I think.
Yes.
20 kilometers ish, maybe.
More than that, I believe. For
Okay.
Europa. But more than not something you just sort of punch through and go ice fishing.
Yeah.
15 miles thick.
Not far for. Sorry, it's quite a long distance for oxygen to kind of make its way,
Make its way-
through that crust.
Okay.
But there is oxygen. There's a lot of oxygen actually on the surface because
It's made of water.
it's made of water and then radiation and
it gets
charged
bombarded?
particles. It gets
Okay.
bombarded, and then we end up with a lot of oxygen that gets produced and then trapped in that icy crust.
So the bombardment preferentially removes hydrogen from the water molecules, so you sort of end up with a surplus of O's compared to your H's.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you end up those recombining into O2 and getting trapped in little icy vesicles
Okay.
in the
icy
surface.
Vesicles?
Yes.
Nice.
I can do science words. And so there are different sort of techniques that have been suggested of all sort of methods that this could be transported, but they're not super convincing. But then this team has done some modeling which shows that there are some areas on Europa, they're called chaotic terrains.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these like
Fancy word for don't know what's going on there.
It's a big jumbly mess.
Yeah, bit
Yes.
messy, and there's evidence that there's salty brines. We love these salty brines on
We
these
do
icy
love
surfaces.
salty brines on the show.
It seems every story I've done for the last month has been salty brines. But oxygen can actually get mixed up within these salty brines on the surface, and this kind of very salty liquid can migrate its way through the porous ice
Okay.
over a scale
like
of tens
it's
of
like a
thousands of years.
meltdown kind of thing.
Yeah, they described it like, in a cartoon, when you have a hose pipe and water, like a boulder of water making its way through like a hose pipe.
Yeah.
First, hose pipe. Is that different than a hose or a pipe? What's a hose pipe?
Oh, just a hose pipe. Okay, or a hose. You
I
can
don't
just
know.
say
Okay,
a hose.
so
It's the same thing.
boulder-
A hose or a pipe.
Are you talking about like, the giant...
Yeah, like a bulge of
boulder-
water,
Yes.
like making its way. So they're saying there's like these pulses of high pressure, like brines that kind of pulsate through this icy crust.
Or we could think of peristalsis in the esophagus passing
Am I the
a
only one that knows that song?
bolus from the mouth. to the
Whichever
stomach.
Sure.
whichever imagery helps
Okay.
to get
Way
this
to choose the cleanest tube. that you
oxygen
could.
oxygen through the crust of Europa, and they've tried it. There's like a massive factor of how much, what's the word, scaling of how much water.
It's not super efficient.
Words.
Is what you're going for?
No, they've in their modeling they've been able to consider like in best estimates you can end up with equivalent amounts of oxygen as we have in our oceans here on Earth. But
Oh.
But in more realistic
but
When
that's
you say
like-
best estimates, you mean sort of most optimistic for life estimates? Or
no, most
the
optimum for
actually
most optimum
physically realistic.
the maximum amount of oxygen that could be transported with this method.
Okay.
But they could be out by a factor of like 10,000.
Oh,
So
that's kind of a big factor.
it is a big factor. So yeah, but it's an interesting
It's cool plots showing the like porosity
Yeah.
moving down into the ocean.
and even if there isn't as much oxygen as there is in our ocean, even just a small amount could be
Yeah.
enough.
But
we don't know.
But really, you don't even need any oxygen, right? It didn't. Life arose on Earth in the
Without
absence of oxygen,
It's true.
and so
But did eukaryotic life?
In fact,
brain
yeah,
life?
yeah. If you want fish, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. And there's still life out there that is that oxygen is a poison for anaerobic bacteria.
Right.
We don't like those life forms here.
No,
Cool.
Yeah.
Jim likes
but that
the
is cool.
idea that there's good fish there.
there is awesome. That's why I want to go down there. I want to check it out. Not just for the fish, but just all the creepy crawly things that
Just
might be
for
down
the
there.
Fish. Jim
Not just
Kenny
for the
wants
fish.
to go to Europa.
Not just
Not just for the
That's
fish.
the mission tagline, actually.
Yeah.
It's more, yeah.
Europa Clipper,
Europa
not
Clipper,
just
Not
for the
just for the
fish.
fish.
Right.
I'm gonna make a
reminds me
poster.
of Douglas Adams' novel "So Long and Thanks for All the Fish."
Yes.
Dolphins, yes, taking off. And we have another sort of planetary, not necessarily unique to our system story about protoplanetary disks and the formation of planets.
Yeah, there's fun new results from an old telescope. I always
Which one?
Spitzer.
Oh, I love that guy.
Yeah, was he a good guy?
I don't know.
I guess in space news, Eugene Parker died.
Yeah.
He lived long enough to see a mission named after him
Right,
launch.
the Parker
though.
Solar
Yeah.
Probe,
Cool.
yeah.
He was there for the launch. He was pretty old.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Spitzer is no longer operational, and in the later phases of its mission, so it was originally had like cryocoolant and stuff like that, and did certain wavelengths. I forget
It's
which
sort of
wavelengths.
the James Webby kind of precursor.
Right, it's an infrared
It's an
telescope.
infrared telescope. So originally it was cooled because if you're trying to measure heat stuff, if your telescope is warm, your noise
Right.
is too high and you can't measure it. So originally it was cooled, but then once they ran out of coolant, they were still able to do some observations at like 3 and 4.5 microns or something like
Right.
that. And so this is some new evidence primarily from Spitzer data, and they used some complementary measurements from a ground-based optical telescope that's looking at an object called HD 166191, which is a young protoplanetary system that they think they see some sort of collisional event that produced a big dust cloud, and then they've watched that dust cloud sort of disperse, this is probably due to some sort of like two asteroid-ish
impact.
sized objects impacting each other.
One of our
Yes.
favorite things to explain oddities in our own solar system, so it's somewhat reassuring to see evidence for it actually taking place somewhere.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, actually, the giant impacts that we use to explain, like, the existence of the moon, or Uranus's odd tilt, or Mercury's sort of dense.
The giant impact is to planetary science as dark matter is to,
Right.
except it has more observational
cosmology.
evidence, or like direct observations. Maybe I don't know.
What I really like about the Spitzer telescope is because they compared some images from that to the James Webb image.
What we're going to see.
Yeah, just to show just how far we've
much
come.
better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with
Because
the quality.
Spitzer was an infrared telescope like James Webb, but much, much smaller. And the instrumentation obviously has evolved quite a bit since then. So
Yeah, but so they see they have Spitzer observations, and they looked from like 2018 to 2020 kind of time frame, and they have this intense collisional activity in sort of the terrestrial zone. So they map it
close
out
into
as
the
like
star.
so it has an apparent period of 142 days, which is like 0.6 AU, so closer in than Earth even. And there's an object that ends up being several hundred kilometers in size. It's this big sort of clump that moves around, and then it becomes more translucent and thermally translucent over time. So when there's a big dust cloud, you'll see it in thermal wavelengths
it acts
because
like
it
an
heats
opaque
up.
object that's warm, and you see a bright spot.
Yeah.
And then as it disperses, then the nature of the spectrum that you see from it changes.
Yeah.
It's remarkable still to me that we're able to make these kinds of measurements about systems around other stars, that we can resolve these things and
Insane.
figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so they see this brightening like over, it was heating up over like 2018, 2019, and toward the beginning of that phase, they went back and looked at optical images, and they see dips in the brightness, in the optical brightness, probably due to this largish object passing in
Eclipsing
front
the
of the star.
Nice. So this is another thing. You were talking about your favorite thing about physics, Jim, or one of your favorite things. We could do a song. It'll be
I have so many favorite things.
future Walkabout music video. It's not the next one, but one of my favorite things is the extraordinary amount of information you get just from looking at light.
Yeah.
And just got to look at it at different colors and just measure how much is coming at each different wavelength. And you can figure out so many things, how hot something is. It's opaque, it's translucent, it's rotating, which way it's moving relative to what its composition is, all that stuff. That's one of my
It's mind-boggling. Yeah.
And now we're going to be able to do it not with light, but with gravitational waves too.
I know.
Awesome.
Well, I'm totally gonna do. These are a few of my favorite things about physics.
Yeah.
We should.
By the way,
We'll do
closing
it,
on that.
You all have to sing
walkabout
in it.
version.
A walkabout version, and you're all gonna sing.
Oh,
I think
hell
I'm
yeah.
sick that day.
You can get a voiceover.
When I was reading one of the popular articles about that, this HD 166191, I was very upset by one sentence that I read in that was said, when a collision between distant objects occurs, astronomers train their telescope on it to figure out what happened. That was a preposterous sentence. As if, we knew that happened, and then we all turned our
We
telescopes.
saw it with the naked eye and then decided to turn a telescope on
Let's take
it.
a look at it with our telescope.
Yeah.
We heard it.
Yeah, there's a news report. Hey, astronomers, you should look at this thing with a telescope because this happened. Well, let's.
All right.
I mean, to be
all right,
fair,
my friends.
there are now trigger things from other telescopes that sometimes go off, and it is like, hey, astronomers, look at this thing.
You're right. That's true.
With your other
That's
telescope.
true.
Yes.
All right, my friends. Part one. What is the inspiration? And I will give you a hint, because I didn't give you multiple choice. I'll give you a hint. Tolkien was English.
Yes, that's our hint.
British?
That's your hint.
British English?
He was English.
Okay.
That doesn't feel like very much of a hint to me.
So he knew about literature.
He had a charming accent.
From the people he met on the Orkney Isles.
The Orkneys. I love it.
That's all I've got.
What's the question? We're talking about the
What is
origin of
the
orcs.
inspiration for the monsters in Lord of the Rings known as orcs? And it has something to do with J.R.R. Tolkien's Englishness somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I got nothing.
Nothing.
I really don't.
Me neither.
Orcs are
This
big,
is a stumper.
scary-
It's not a trivia question. It's a
This
stumper.
is a tough one. Don't worry. The follow-ups, I think, are easier.
Okay. It's
This is
from
a tough one. I don't know.
Beowulf.
Oh. Gollum, the Green Knight.
Oh, that's
Addie, you are on fire. It is from Beowulf.
Very good.
It is from
I
Beowulf.
did read that.
Which was in Old English.
Yeah.
Very good. It was
yes,
a good hint.
thank you.
And
Yes.
Excellent.
That was excellent job. Excellent work.
Good job not reacting when I said it, though.
I know. Yeah, that's fantastic.
The Green Knight was not a terrible.
It was great.
last second
That also has recently been made into a movie.
Yeah. That is very nice. Yeah, that
It's a very
movie
dark
was weird.
Yeah.
Looking for some brownie.
Brownies.
It also might come from a reference to Orcus, who was a god, also known as one of the planets.
Oh.
Tell me which planet Orcus is another name for.
Jupiter.
Mercury.
Neptune.
Guys,
Can't be Neptune.
Orcus. This is an evil, bad.
Mars.
No.
Uranus.
Venus.
Oh my god.
Which ones haven't we named?
Pluto.
Pluto is the god of
Oh.
The underworld.
the underworld.
I thought it had to be a planet.
You said planet.
That's right. You're damn right I did.
Oh.
You're damn right I did. Pluto is a freaking planet.
I was thinking it was going to planets pre,
Yeah,
we were
back in the day.
pre 20th
What is it, Ceres?
Planet. Who, by the way, was Pluto's wife? You guys should know your
I don't know my mythology.
mythology.
Who was Pluto's
Who
wife?
was Pluto's wife?
Karen.
No.
Dog, right?
Pluto wasn't a dog.
No.
Oh, Karen. Oh, I don't know what Karen was.
Kerberos was a dog.
Kerberos is a dog. Stuffle's dog.
Jim, these trivia are too hard.
These are hard.
man.
Okay.
Nyx. Hydra.
His wife was Persephone.
Oh, Persephone. Okay.
I can't even say
so you're
it, let
very
alone.
Persephone. Your last, the last part of this is Persephone
Oh, that was
is
part of the trivia? Oh, geez.
Persephone. You win the trivia. You won the trivia already.
These are the easy ones.
These are the easy parts. This is not one easy one, but you can guess at it. Persephone is not one of the major astronomical objects, of course, in our solar system, but there is a minor thing named Persephone in our solar system. Can you tell me what it is?
A crater.
I mean,
That's a good guess.
an asteroid.
That's also a good guess.
There's a minor thing.
There's a minor thing
Persephone.
called Persephone. And these guys, you wouldn't know it,
Comet?
but they've made good guesses so far.
No.
You can't have more than one guess.
That's why I was Persephone. I was in Comet.
Josh, you win this one. It is. Nice. There's an asteroid 399. One of the earlier ones is Persephone. There's also lots of other. Persephone is a potential mission to Pluto that has been in planning now.
Okay.
To go orbit the Pluto-Charon system.
Nice.
What?
Yeah.
And see what's really going on with Pluto. See if maybe there is a liquid water ocean underneath the surface.
With briny, salty brine.
All the brines.
Hey, there could be so
All the
many
brines. Think of
brines.
the episodes we'll have.
Well, it may have felt like solving for the motion of all the stars in the galaxy. It was just another episode of Walkabout the Galaxy. Give us 5 stars and we'll give you many bodies. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get all our updates, and check out our website at walkaboutthegalaxy.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Walkabout the Galaxy. Catch up on old episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter.
At walk_the_galaxy.
And ask us questions anywhere using hashtag AskWTG. Our theme music was composed by Richard Grusick. Production assistance is provided by Logan Basinger. Thanks to our listeners in New Jersey and around the world. Stay safe. I'm Josh Caldwell.
I'm Addie Dove.
I'm Hannah Sargent.
And I'm Jim Cooney.
We're the Astrocork, signing off until the next episode of Walkabout the Galaxy.
Brines.
Brines and brines.
Brines.